What do you do if you're injured on somebody else's property? Hi, I'm Chris Munley, and I'm with the law firm Munley & Cartwright. And I want to tell you about a client of mine who had just that problem. He was a young man, he was 17 years old. His sister had just moved into her first apartment. He went to visit her. It was an exciting day. She lived up on the second floor. Wasn't the nicest place in the world, but it was her first place. So he went up the outside staircase to get up to the second floor, and he knocked on his sister's door. He wanted to surprise her. As he was standing there waiting for her to answer the door, he took a step back, kind of leaned up against the railing. Well, unbeknownst to my client, the railing had previously been broken. And instead of fixing it, like the landlord should have, and put a bolt into it that would have held it together, the landlord decided to use duct tape. So when that 17-year-old high school student decided just to lean ever so slightly up against that railing, it collapsed, and down he went, backwards, landing on a concrete sidewalk, shattering his spine. And when his sister answered the door, she answered the door to a hanging railing and the sounds of moaning. It was a very, very painful day. And, this is not a problem that's foreign to me. This is a problem that I actually knew a lot about. When I first met with this client, I felt a great deal not only of empathy, but sympathy for him, because I had broken my back. I had shattered my spine in a fall, and I knew exactly the type of pain this young man was feeling. It's kind of scary. He had no health insurance. He was only 17, and his dad had lost his job, so he applied for DPW, but after a few days, the hospital released him. He went home. He didn't know what to do. But I did, because I had that experience in my own life. And I knew when that young man went home, he had to have a hospital bed. He needed to have home health care. He needed therapists to come to his house to help him so he'd be able to get out of bed, because he was facing weeks of horrible pain. He was taking some serious narcotics, and he had to be very careful about that. He had never taken medication before in his life, and suddenly now he's taking things like OxyContin and Vicodin. And somebody had to be there to tell him how to get through it. Imagine being 17 years old and suddenly losing all of your ability to go out and enjoy your life. All of a sudden going from being an active, vibrant young person to being really a captive in a bed. That's what this young man was facing. And when he got home, he wasn't able to care for himself. He still was on heavy medication. He couldn't drive. He couldn't bathe himself. He had to have somebody come in to wash him. He couldn't use the facilities by himself. He had to have someone assist him after he used the bathroom. You imagine the humiliation that young man felt. Just think about what it would be like if you had to have a complete stranger come into the bathroom with you, day after day after day. Now, compound that with being 17 years old. It's a very difficult prospect. I know when it happened to me at 37, I had a really hard time. And I had a wife who was a doctor. I know how difficult it was for me to have to ask for that help. I couldn't have done it at 17. I would have been just mortified. I wouldn't have known how to handle that. But I was at least able to give him the guidance and direction from my own personal experiences. Now, not every client I've ever worked with I've had that type of bond with. But this was a client I knew exactly what he was facing. Months of rigorous physical therapy, extraordinarily long days of pain. He was gonna face a lot of questions about, am I gonna be right? Am I gonna get back to my life? Am I gonna be able to do the things I used to do? Am I gonna have this pain all the time? Because let me tell you, that pain is like having a twin, except it's like having a conjoined twin. Because it's there when you get up in the morning, and when you move around, and when you eat, and when you doze off, and when you go to bed at night. It is the first thing you see in the morning and the last thing you think about at night. And it is a searing, burning pain that fortunately few people ever get to experience. So my job was not only to be this young man's lawyer. My job was also to try to at least help him along and give him some of the experience I learned the hard way. When it happened to me, I didn't have anybody to come back and say, this is what you're going to face, this is what's next. All I did was think, The doctor says, this is how I'm going to get better. I have one chance to get better, and I'm going to do whatever he says. And that's what I told my client. I don't care what you think the doctor is telling you. If he says, stand in the corner on your head, that's what you do, because you want to get better. You don't want to get a little better, you want to get better. You want pain to go away. Pain cannot be an option in your life. So my job was to not only be his lawyer, but also to be his friend. I was his sounding board. I was his father confessor. I was his advocate, and I probably was, his therapist, because I did understand what he was feeling, and I was able to say, "Don't worry, this is how you're going to feel in a couple of weeks." So you have to always be very vigilant, obviously, when you're out and about on your own. You don't ever want this to happen. This young man faced such horrible pain, and he had terrible indignities put upon him. You go into a hospital, they're strangers, they have you naked, they're sticking you with needles, they take you into a shower, and it's almost like you're in a commercial dishwasher. They roll you in to clean you because you can't sit up, you can't stand up because your spine is shattered. And then when you get home, you're just kind of there, and you really have to rely upon the kindness of your friends and strangers to be able to get you out and keep you motivated during the bad days. And all of this happened to this young man. All of it happened to a 17-year-old boy because some guy wouldn't take a $1.50 bolt and stick it into the side of that railing and do it right. He took duct tape. He duct taped the bottom of that railing, and when that young man unsuspectingly leaned up against it, his entire life changed. And you have to ask yourself, what kind of a person does that? I'll tell you what kind of a person does that. Somebody who doesn't care about other people. My job is to care. My job is to be the advocate. My job is to take care of people like this young man who've had their lives changed. If this has happened to you, I would be honored if you'd call me and at least discuss what's happened to you and how you're feeling. And let me take a look at your case and see if there's some way that I can help you. I know I've been able to make a difference in one young man's life because of my experiences, and if it works so well for him, I would like to try to do the same for you. I'm Chris Munley. Thank you very much for listening to me ramble on.